Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Friday follow-up in that continuing journey of accountability. Um, I must say this week I've been feeling frustrated, and I thought about how I wanted to convey my message today without sounding too negative. But again, it's been a frustrating week. And it's like most frustrations that we all feel. A lot of times we have no control over it. And I think what really got me going and made me feel frustrating is that, here we are, beginning of a new year. Some great changes are happening in TOPS, and I'm looking forward for them to come to fruition and have folks really grasp on what some of these changes will mean for them and us as an organization. And all I see across the TV is one commercial after another with, let's just call some of our competitors. You know them by their first names. It gets me. It gets me because I wish that we had a louder voice amongst all this noise of advertising going on about how people can lose weight. And I know we're not going to be able to compete at that level, but here, they're for profit and we're nonprofit. They have a little bit different business model to deal with, but one can hope that someday we'll rise above the noise. And where I get frustrated is that I just want to, like I've said before, get on the highest mountain, the tallest building, and just scream out to everybody and on how good and how wonderful TOPS is and how it's a supportive group to help people get on their journey to a healthier lifestyle. So I think that kind of just put me in a off mood, let's just say, for the week. And we do feel these frustrations, and they do have effect on how we handle things in our lives. And probably the one that's coming right to mind for you folks, and then I'm sure you've heard it before. I know all our weight recorders have heard it before, is that I don't understand. I did everything right and I had to gain this week. That can be frustrating. I gained again this week, 0.8 pound, 0.8 this week. And I'm like on a stretch that just doesn't seem to can be able to turn around. And that's frustrating. And then again, going back to like that, I should be able to control, but then sometimes there are things that are beyond control, and some of the things that frustrate us in our lives. And you can Google anything, folks, and there's actually lists out there that say things that will frustrate you. And I read them through, and I'm thinking, well, that hasn't happened to me. That hasn't happened to me. Oh boy, that's really happened to me. So I guess overall, I shouldn't be frustrated, but it happens. It happens. The one that I read and I kind of laughed was like, when you're going down the aisle at the supermarket or any store, and the person in front of you is just moving a little bit too slow. I mean, hey, I'm in a hurry. I got to get going. But they don't know that. They're looking at things. They're taking their time because they've got things on their mind. They don't know I'm behind them in a hurry. Of course, I could say, excuse me, and walk around. But no, I get frustrated and I internalize it without saying anything. Or the person that makes a quick turn as you're driving and never use their signal. You might say a few words. They won't hear you, but you say a few things and frustrations. So, maybe what I'm hoping will happen is after I share some of my frustrations to you, I'll feel better. And I guess that's the real hidden message in all this, folks, is that we know as an organization, our cornerstone is support, and sharing support is very, very important. I dare say that's what our quote competitors don't offer, is that support network. And I say these things out loud because I'm going to let you on a little secret, folks. Our competitors watch what we're doing. Many times we've come up with phrases and all of a sudden we hear them in other areas. That's why we trademark some of our items, because people are always watching what Tops does. I mean, let's face it, we are the oldest weight loss support group, going back to 1948. So I mean, that's huge. But again, going back to my frustrations this week, where we had what I'm calling a reasonable modification of the rules to make them a little bit more user friendly. And I did do a talk about the rules, and I'll get that link out to you folks so people can listen to it. And one of the things that popped up on the list of things that frustrate people is misinformation. And, we try to get things out to our members. We use Facebook, we use YouTube, we use the Tops News, but we're well aware that not every member gets the information they need in a timely fashion. And then what happens? Misinformation goes on, and then all of a sudden you see folks discussing things like, wait a minute, that's not what we intended to happen. That can be frustrating. So we try to do these course corrections going forward and putting everything on the right path. And I know we're not going to please everyone. I think I learned that real quick in working with my grandfather. My grandfather used to manage apartment buildings, and I was the handyman to the handyman as my grandfather got older and couldn't do this stuff. And, you have to learn to listen to people complain, criticize. They feel that they're right because they understand the way they understand it. And you just have to use tact, common sense, allow them to come around and get more information, and realize that getting frustrated is not really going to help. But hey, it happens. An early lesson I learned with my grandfather is that we had this person that would always park in the wrong spot when it was snowstorms, and we'd have to wait for that vehicle to get moved, and we couldn't get things cleaned out like that. So a young kid, I said, I can solve this. And I wrote a nasty note and put it on the car. It did not get the effect that I thought it was going to get. It just made the matter worse. And my grandfather said, you're not going to get anywhere by yelling or writing nasty notes. You just need to just listen and be patient. And I think that's where I probably learned my patience. Not perfect, but I can wait for things. And I think that's why I'm saying, where my frustrations came this week is I'm seeing all these things going on with our competitors. I'm seeing the new stuff that we're bringing to Tops, and we got this pandemic hanging over our head, and we're ready to move forward as an organization, and it's just not going fast as I thought. But then I remembered what my grandfather told me. You just got to be patient. It will come around. If you are on the track, the journey that you've put forward, and you get a little stumbling block, or it's just not going the way you anticipated, and you feel that frustration coming in, take a step back. Be patient. Look for support. Ask for support. That's probably a real big thing to do. Ask for that support. And just remember, you are going to get a lot more if you just stay calm and listen And I guess an example that I can use is with the TOPS rules. They go in effect this year. Some of the changes, people are kind of questioning what's going on. I'll use an example, and so I'll get that link out for folks and stuff like that. Is that we're not gonna penalize folks for not weighing in at a chapter meeting. It doesn't mean, like I have heard out there, that we don't want people to weigh in. We encourage everybody to weigh in, to stay accountable. But what does it do for somebody who misses 4 weeks, or having the old ways had 4 ABs and gets penalized? They had a little gap in the year and they got back on track. And then in December 2022, you say, sorry, you lost 85 pounds, but you're not eligible for recognition because, back a while ago, you missed 4 or 5 weeks. What good is that? That's not a supportive way we do it. And it was interpreted as, well, we don't want people to weigh in. We want everybody to weigh in. But if it's just not for you that week, we want you to go to the meeting and get the support. I think that was the message that we were really trying to go forward. And like I said, when you listen to that talk, unfortunately, it's an hour long, but when you listen to what we were trying to do as an organization, I think you'll understand where we're getting at. The other part that I think played into my frustration, and I'm weaving things in and out here so you can pluck these little nuggets of information, is that all this advertising that I see from those other organizations are a heck of a lot more expensive than what TOPS is. And yeah, we had a price increase for the first time in a long time, and I get it. It's not easy. It's especially the way the economy has turned all of a sudden. But planning for these things don't happen overnight. This had been in the works for like 6 to 8 months as we plan forward. If I had a crystal ball, boy, I'd be using it for a lot of things. But we can help people try to get through this, and with the support. So again, misinformation can frustrate people. Things that not going your way can frustrate you. But again, I just, with this happening this week, and I was just putting some stuff away, and I was thinking of my early working days with my grandfather. I mean, that was like well over 50 years ago, folks. But I still remember him saying, Rick, you're not going to get anywhere in life if you just throw your hands up in the air and get frustrated, scream, hoot and holler, stamp your feet on the ground. Yeah, you might feel good for a quick minute, but you're not going to make progress. Take that step back, take a breath, ask for help, try to understand what the other person is saying, how they feel, because they're probably just as frustrated as you are, depending, and it doesn't have to be with our weight loss or what we're dealing with. It's just life in general. So I kind of wish you had met my grandfather. He was a cool person, well ahead of his time. And I'll just close with when I started having all my grandsons coming down the pike, and finally had a granddaughter. When the first grandson came, I was like, well, what are we going to call you? And the first thing I thought of was, I want to be called Grampy. And we're from our French background, and my wife wanted to be called Meme, and she goes, why don't you want to be called Pepe? Because we're our French background. I says, I want to be called Grampy because I had a Grampy. And I think when I get frustrated, I think about that first lesson that I learned about patience, and I get better. So I thank you for letting me share my frustrations with you. I'm sure that you can share your frustrations, and we'll see you next Friday.